Part 33. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 321. At 10 o'clock in the morning, at the booth of the cafe, the three Jian 3 had arrived. A few minutes later, Mr. Yang walked in with a hangover on his face, and the three hurried to greet him. Mr. Yang, you have a cup of coffee first and go to get rid of the alcohol. President Li will be there in a while. Sit down quickly. Mr. Yang sat down and looked around, and he could see that he was a little uneasy, and he obviously didn't trust the Jian 3. Lu Feng parked the car at the door and stepped out of the car. He was dressed in a light blue suit and looked very delicate, with black-rimmed glasses stuck on his face and a business watch on his wrist. But full of business style. Stepping into the coffee shop, after a glance, there is only one table of them in the entire coffee shop. Mr. Li is here, screamed sharply. Mr. Yang raised his head and looked at the door. When he saw that Lu Feng was so temperamental, his whole person was so out of tune with the surrounding environment, as if a person of color had entered a black and white world. He was a little more at ease, at least not the kind of person who looked like a scam at first glance. This kind of outfit and temperament were not found in ordinary people. Let me introduce you, this is President Yang Yuan said first, this is President Li, a returnee. Hello, I'm the marketing director of Goldman Sachs Investment. My name is Li Nianzu. Lu Feng introduced himself. Hello, Mr. Yang stretched out his hand and shook it, and said, I'm the general manager of Tianyun Logistics. My name is Yang Tianke. They told me about it yesterday, but I don't understand it very well. Please sit down, let me give you a brief introduction. I am an overseas Chinese and work in Goldman Sachs Investment. Due to my race, I was sent back to China to develop the investment market here. Stocks, and has a very large data grasp on currency exchange rates and commodity trade. While talking, Lu Feng took out a stack of paper from his bag, with various patterns printed on it. Our company raises funds around the world, and conducts tens of millions of transactions every day. Whether it is the stock market, funds, or foreign exchange, it requires a lot of capital to leverage. With guaranteed funds, we can obtain considerable income. The most important thing is that we have underground bank transactions, and we can get the latest data as soon as possible. Compared with retail investors, we are more professional. You should also know the huge profits in this area. How much money we make is our business, but we can give you a fixed interest rate point. 15%. One day, Mr. Yang still couldn't believe it. 15% a day, the speed at which money came in, made bank robbers jealous when he saw it. Yes, this is the recent market. It was as high as 24% some time ago. The market fluctuates greatly, so I don't need to explain too much. I know, every second is trading, Mr. Yang nodded. How much did you invest? I don't have much on hand for the time being, so I'll put in 10,000 first. Mr. Yang took out a wad of money from his pocket as he spoke. Why only 10,000? Jian said a little disappointed. Don't you have a gap of 700,000 yuan? If you invest a few million, don't you plug the hole? As soon as the three urged, Mr. Yang instantly became suspicious, and he immediately put his hand on the money. Lu Feng secretly scolded the three for bad things, and said, how much to invest is the customer's choice, you just take the commission. Yang, don't listen to them, they are taking money, of course they hope to exploit more. President Yang smiled, feeling that Lu Feng was right, and his expression relaxed a bit. Let's sign a contract. This is a fund escrow agreement. It's like this, because the money has to go internationally, and now the investigation is very strict, that is, our relationship is hard, and we quietly go to Citibank in Xiangjiang, and then transfer to the United States to record, so we can only sign this kind of contract, but you can rest assured that there will be no less. Lu Feng introduced. This is a standard fund escrow contract. The content of the contract is that Yang Tianke will hand over 10,000 yuan to a company called Tiankai Technology in Shenzhen for custody for a period of not less than 30 days and not more than 90 days. During this period no interest rate charges are incurred. And the company has the absolute right to use the funds, which can be used for any purpose without any explanation to the entrusting party. Mr. Yang frowned when he saw the contract. He read the contract over and over several times, and saw two words between the lines: robbery. Fund transfer, it must be written like this. In fact, this contract is just a form. We must ask for your authorization. I hope you can understand that we will open up the channel as soon as possible, Lu Feng said sincerely. Mr. Yang looked at the contract, and the two villains were fighting in his heart. The rational villain told him that this contract could not be signed, and signing it was equivalent to losing money. Another villain said, "You have reached this point, always it's better than mortgaging your own property to fill the hole. Take a gamble. It's only 10,000 yuan, and if it's gone, it's gone. What if it's true?" Seeing that he was hesitating, Lu Feng kept talking about how his company was doing, and kept giving him hints, using Goldman Sachs as his backing, and using Gao Huilai to lure him. This contract is actually the thunder planted by Lu Feng. He must make these people believe him unconditionally, and finally sign a huge number on this contract. President Yang took a deep breath, and for a moment seemed to make up his mind, took the contract and signed his name. And here, also sign the word, and press the handprint here. A few minutes later, the contract was settled. Lu Feng stretched out his hand to hold Mr. Yang's hand and said, "It's a pleasure to cooperate. You are welcome to participate in Goldman Sachs investment, the world's largest investment feast. Come, let's have a toast." 10 minutes later, President Yang left, and Lu Feng looked at the three of them and said, "Thank you, I finally signed an order, which is a very good start. Then after the income is generated tomorrow, I will give you points as soon as possible. This Mr. Yang is really, he looks very rich, but I didn't expect to be so poor. Yeah, I thought I could invest a few million, 10 million. The three of them murmured in disgust. Lu Feng looked at the three of them and smiled without saying a word. He thought to himself, how many millions? Don't take money for money. It was almost noon when Mr. Yang returned to the freight yard. As soon as he entered the office, he saw 7 or 8 people sitting. These people were also old acquaintances. "Old Yang, what's the matter? Drinking numb last night? Go out and drink some more. How about the Golden Palace at night? Tonight I heard that it was Mr. He who invited guests. Damn, he can afford it, but I can't afford it. Those sluts inside are really humming expensive. It's still a waste of the body. Ha 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 ha. It doesn't matter if you have money or not, can you still suffer a loss with Mr. Su?" Yang Tianke looked at these people laughing and giggling, but he couldn't lift his mood. These people either had something to do with Mr. Su in the industry, or they were general managers in Mr. Su's company. Everyone was on the same level. Someone found that President Yang was in a bad mood and asked, "What's wrong?" "There is something wrong with the funds." Yang Tianke sat down, picked up the cigarette on the coffee table, lit one, and took a sip. "Hongyun, that bastard doesn't follow the rules. He moved your money." Yang Tianke nodded, his face was wrinkled, it was impossible not to worry about people. "How much money was moved here? Why haven't I heard you say that if this is found by the head office's financial affairs, will it be sentenced?" 1 million, I'll come back with 300,000. Yang Tianke took a sharp puff of his cigarette and said, "I just wanted to earn some tolls for crossing the bridge, but I didn't expect, damn, the bridge collapsed. Mr. Yang, I've been quite nervous recently. My wife is in charge of all my money. Isn't my father-in-law in a car accident some time ago, and I spent a lot of money in hospital. Yang Tianke looked at all these arrogant and bragging bosses who were happy to eat and drink on weekdays. He felt a chill in his heart, and squeezed out a smile and said, "I don't need you, I have found a way out." "What's the way out?" "I know someone from Wall Street who is very profitable in the stock market, funds, foreign exchange, etc." Yang Tianke said in a muffled voice. "Which street is Wall Street?" "Wall Street is the street in the United States, the financial street, and Goldman Sachs is not that company." "The United States?" "President Yang, you won't be deceived, will you?" Yang Tianke's face became even more bitter, and he squeezed out a few folds. He came out of the coffee shop and walked this way. He felt that he must have been deceived, but there was such a glimmer of hope in his heart. Is there really a miracle in this world? What if I didn't invest much, just 10,000 yuan, and the income per day is 15%? I don't think that person is a liar. President Yang raised his head and looked at the crowd. Everyone stared at him, showing a bit of pity in their expressions. Some people wanted to persuade him, but opened their mouths and felt that there was no need to speak. "Forget it, let's have a drink and go. Come on, I'll treat you." Everyone went out and drove straight to the restaurant. When they were eating, everyone was running on Yang Tianke inside and out, saying that he was in a panic and went to the doctor and lost his head. The money was definitely cheated. What's more, he said on the spot that if he could get the money tomorrow, he would walk head down. When Lu Feng left in the morning, he instructed the hotel to deliver today's newspaper to the room, returned to the room, threw the documents on the table, and picked up today's newspaper. The chairman of GFN Electronics disappeared in our city and was rumored to owe hundreds of millions of dollars. Changhong Electronics' rival, the chairman of Weputa, is missing. The company owes huge debts and mortgages the machines to survive. Lu Feng looked through several reports, but there was not much expression on his face. These reports were written in general, and he didn't know much about GFN Electronics. Putting down the newspaper, Lu Feng sat in his chair and pondered. It has already been widely reported here. It is estimated that the Jiangsu side has completely fried the pot. He originally wanted to give Zhang Fengxia a call. This kind of sudden crisis especially tests the emergency responsibility of a manager, but then he thought about how to help her with everything. When will she grow up? This time is also a test. As for the damage to the market caused by such a wide range of reports, Lu Feng really doesn't care. If he can't handle it this time, GFN Electronics will also be dead. A person who is about to die, will he still think about his chronic disease? High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 322. Compared with Chengdu, Shenzhen, where electronics and technology companies are more concentrated, is more violent, especially as a supplier of GFN Electronics. After the news was released, they were a little panicked. Zhang Fengxia held a meeting with a person from the business department, constantly appeasing these suppliers. In order to show that her business was operating normally, she settled some payments in advance. The headlines of some local science and technology newspapers are much more pungent than these. GFN Electronics is dead, and more private companies will sacrifice on the eve of industrial change. Some newspaper headlines even directly call GFN Electronics an industry tumor, while its falling down is an industry surgery. Zhang Fengxia's busy eyes have turned green these past few days, not only to stabilize the suppliers, but also to stabilize the employees in the factory, but also to explain to Lu Chang. Last night, Lu Chang called and said that there is still a lot of research and development funds left here. Appropriate the following. Zhang Fengxia didn't want to tell him that Lu Chang was the person in charge of a subordinate company, and what happened in the factory had nothing to do with him. Seeing that he was so anxious, he had to tell the truth. One stone stirred up 1,000 waves, and Lu Feng disappeared. In an instant, a group of dragons were in a state of no leader. Not only did many companies throw olive branches at core high-level personnel such as Zhang Fengxia, Lu Cheng, and Zhu Lidong, even some middle-level managers have recently received a lot of them. Invite. Everyone is looking at the wind, and if the situation is not right, they will jump ship immediately. Zhu Lidong has been in contact with the lawyer team all day. After talking for so long, the lawyer told him that the lawsuit is not easy to fight, and suggested that it be resolved in private. He was not in a hurry. Anyway, he was covering himself now. When he returned to the hotel, the front desk told him that he had a phone number and asked him to call back. Zhu Lidong came to the room and called. "Which one?" "Lidong, it's me." Mr. Liu's voice came from the other end of the phone. When Zhu Lidong heard that it was him, the expression on his face was a little helpless, but also a little moved. "Mr. Liu, why did you remember to call me? Come back, a company that is about to collapse, don't talk about the future, whether it can last until the end of the year is a problem. I will keep the location for you, and you are familiar with the business. We are very happy to cooperate, isn't it?" Zhu Lidong was silent. He was really tired at GFN Electronics during this period of time. He also felt that Lu Feng was a very demanding person. Working with such people, he would indeed learn a lot, but he needed to constantly improve himself. Otherwise, you will be eliminated. Zhu Lidong wanted to refuse, but immediately reacted. Did the other party really let him go back, or did he spy on something? After thinking about it for a while, the whole industry is now talking about Lu Feng's disappearance. Those companies probably want to know more than anyone else, what happened. Thinking of this, Zhu Lidong raised his vigilance. "Hey, Lidong, are you still there?" "I'm here, thank you for caring about me so much. I'll think about it, and to be honest, I'm very sorry," Zhu Lidong said politely. Hearing the answer on the other end of the phone, there seemed to be a trace of loss in his words, and he said, "It's all right, people come and go, it's all normal, then I'll wait for your call." "Okay, Mr. Liu, rest early." A few minutes after hanging up, there was a knock on the door. Opening the door, a man in his 30s looked at Zhu Lidong and said, "Mr. Zhu, Dashui Su asked someone to come over and ask you to have dinner." The person who called said that they also wanted to develop towards electronics. "Money is not a problem, the main problem is the lack of talents like you." "A talent like me?" Zhu Lidong murmured, and he already understood in his heart that another person was trying to find out whether Lu Feng was in the country by digging up his own name. "Should we go?" "Go." In the private room of the hotel owned by Su Dashui's company, a man in his 50s sat in the middle, next to Sun Yuanqing, and he was surrounded by guests. Zhu Lidong pushed open the door and walked in. Seeing the man in the middle, he said, "Mr. Su, it's been a long time." "Mr. Zhu, sit down." The people present were very polite. After Zhu Lidong was seated, the other party didn't talk about business at all, but chatted about hot pot and mahjong. The meal was more like a gathering of friends, full of chatter. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 flavors of dishes, Mr. Su raised his wine glass and looked at Zhu Lidong, and asked, "I heard that the boss of GFN Electronics is not too old." "Yes, Mr. Liu is in his 20s. 20s? Everyone present was shocked when they heard this age. "Isn't this humming Bill Gates in China? After all, I am too young. I really know something about the electronics industry and am very interested, especially in GFN Electronics," Su Dashui said with a hiccup. "If I buy GFN Electronics, is Mr. Zhu interested in staying?" Zhu Lidong showed a bit of joy on his face, raised his glass and said, "That's even better, I'm a part-time worker, I can do it for anyone." Mr. Zhu promised so happily. Sun Yuanqing looked at him and said, "If Lu Feng heard this, I'm afraid it would be bad." "He can't hear, that bastard has long gone abroad." Zhu Lidong seemed to suddenly realize that he had said something wrong, so he hurriedly stopped, touched the glass of Su Dashue's wine glass, and said, "I'm bored. It's up to you." Lu Feng was lying on the bed preparing to go to sleep, and suddenly sneezed, wondering, who is scolding himself? At 12 o'clock in the evening, Zhu Lidong told the truth about what he should say and what he shouldn't say, and then at the dinner table, he scolded Lu Feng with a lot of blood. Ah! Lu Feng sneezed 7 or 8 times in a row, got up and muttered, he might have a cold, so he called the hotel service department and asked them to bring some medicine. Tonight, Jian and the three were still looking for customers everywhere. After a few chats, they started to introduce financial products. Lu Feng compiled a very good document for them. The three clearly wrote about how to make profits, the rate of return of products, and the current situation of the stock market and funds in the United States. The three of them worked hard, and they all memorized it in one afternoon, and they also mastered it by themselves, and made a more accessible version. Sure enough, finance drives people crazy. After waiting until the end of the dinner, the three of them found nothing. A boss in his 40s liked yuan and asked for 2,000 yuan. As long as he had fun, he would take her on a trip in a few days. Money was not a problem. If it was before, this would definitely be a big job, but yuan refused without hesitation, and scolded the other party. Blind your eyes, the old lady is in finance, understand? Do you know how to write these two words, half a returnee, what are you? The guests were scolded for a while, and looked around a little unhappily, wanting to complain, but the girls in this kind of place were all invited on the bright side, and they were all ladies. Everyone is a well-mannered person. It is very ugly to arrange a few young ladies at a high-level banquet. If it is a girl who is invited, you meet and chat well. After staying together for a while, if you feel that it is not suitable for each other, the man will pay a breakup fee. This is humming love. Lisa stepped forward and apologized to the boss, said a few good words, went down a step, turned her head to look at the three and said, "You three, come here." When they got to the lounge outside, Lisa looked at the three of them and said, "What are you doing here? Is there something wrong? What kind of bullshit do you sell to the boss every day? It's just a high-end topic. You didn't teach us to talk to the bosses about high-end things, not about the lower body. Then let's talk about finance. What other financial products do you sell? What do you want to do? You don't know your identities." Lisa stared at the three and scolded, "Why are you such a chicken? Do you have any morals?" Jeed. The three looked at each other, not knowing what this thing was. The next day, Lu Feng got up to take a shower and called Yang Tianqi as soon as he had breakfast. "Hello? Who is it?" The voice on the other end of the phone was hoarse. "Mr. Yang, it's me, Li Nianzu. Your investment rebate and principal have come back, let's choose a place to hand over," Lu Feng said. "You're back." Yang Tianqi's voice was very long, and he could hear it, which was beyond his expectations. "Yes, where shall we meet?" 15%. "No, I told you yesterday that I will charge 5% of the handling fee, and the girls who introduce you will get 0.5% of the commission, 9.5%, 900%. $50. After lying down for a while, I earned 905. Yang Tianqi slapped his thigh fiercely, "It really hurts." He even said that after a few good appointments it was the same cafe, put down the phone and rubbed his hands in excitement. It's really humming making money while lying down. Sure enough, those who work hard in this world are stupid, and those who really make money are effortless. He dressed casually and drove downstairs to the cafe. Lu Feng arrived early, and when Yang Tianqi saw Lu Feng again, his face was filled with joy. He stepped forward and grabbed Lu Feng's hand, and said, "Thank you, Mr. Li, you are the best." No, thank you for your trust. I am a business person, you have to sign these documents, These are the receipts, and the use of funds, investment products. This time your funds are invested in foreign exchange, mainly USD vs franc. Lu Feng put a lot of things in front of him and looked very professional. After signing everything, Lu Feng took out the money and handed it to him. Holding the money, Yang Tianke's eyes lit up, and there was only one thought in his heart, that is to make a fortune. He said, "Can this money still be invested?" "Okay. I'll add another 40,000 yuan this time. This is all my family's wealth. Tomorrow will be 4,750 yuan in rebate, right?" "No, it's 5,000. You signed it directly with me, and you don't need to pay them a commission," Lu Feng said with a smile. Yang Tianke nodded. Although the 0.5% commission is small, if he can bring in tens of millions of funds, that is a lot of income. He heartbroken. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 323. Yang Tianke went home, took out all the money in the family, and came to the coffee shop to sign the contract again. Just a few minutes after he left, the three Jian came and took their agency fee. When they heard that Yang Tianke didn't have their fees after investing again, the three of them were very unhappy, but they didn't say anything. They just felt that when they brought in those bosses in the future, they would have to invest more. Anyway, it was a one-shot deal. Lu Feng watched the three girls leave, a smile on his face, and now he was only one step away from cheating on Su Dashui and Sun Yuanqing. Although Yang Tianke made some money, he was still worried. Those bosses told him to go to dinner, but he didn't take care of him. Now it's up to tomorrow. If the rebate still arrives tomorrow, he will really send it? The next day, Lu Feng called him on time. It was still the same process. 55,000 yuan was placed in front of him. Looking at the money, Yang Tianke really no longer had any doubts this time. "I'll continue to invest the money." Yang Tianke pushed the money in front of Lu Feng and said, "What about the contract?" "I'll sign it." Lu Feng looked at the money in front of him with a troubled expression, slammed his mouth and said, "Mr. Yang, I have to tell you something. Because of the development of the domestic market, the conditions given by the headquarters are relatively lenient. You can't even see the splash, it's Wall Street, and no matter where the money is, it's no different from a piece of paper there. Yes. The headquarters called me and said that I can't do this anymore. I will take my own account for the last time today. The next single investment should not be less than 100,000 yuan. Of course, if you want to invest, you can. You find a few people, combine them into one account and invest in it, and then you will share the money yourself." Lu Feng looked at him and said it very seriously. At the same time, he took out a copy of the facts, all in English, and put it in front of him and said, "It's not that I don't want to vote for you, these documents are clearly written, you can see for yourself." Where did Yang Tianke know any English? After a glance, he felt that he was not aware of it. He nodded repeatedly and said that he would definitely meet the standard next time. He was very satisfied to be able to participate in such a powerful investment event. After Yang Tianke left, Lu Feng packed up his things and went back. He knew that if he didn't force him to increase the limit, he would keep playing here with the 50,000 yuan. This was not what Lu Feng wanted. On the way back, Yang Tianke was a little worried. He didn't have much cash in his hand, but he really didn't want to let go of such a good opportunity. Although Yang Tianke was very reluctant, who would like the people around him to get rich? What he hopes most is, he is the most arrogant in his circle. "Hey, Mr. Li? Are you coming out for a drink?" "Oh, Mr. Yang is happy? What? The financial hole is blocked. That hole is only 700,000 yuan. It's small money for me. Who am I? Aren't you crazy? 700,000 is not money. I was really worried the day before yesterday. I found a way to get money. I want to take you to make a fortune and come out for a drink. I'll call the sixth brother and the others. It's the same place, I'll treat you. Yang Tianqi hung up the phone after he finished speaking. On the second floor of the Spring Court Hotel, the people who had been drinking the day before yesterday were basically all there. Yang Tianqi sat on the main seat with a radiant face. Everyone present was wondering, did this kid pick up a gold nugget? So happy? Close the door, Yang Tianqi said to the waiter. What's the matter? You're so rambling, you're not allowed to have ears on the walls. That's right, say it. Yang Tianqi smiled mysteriously and said, the investment I told you the day before yesterday has been paid for 2 days in a row. The one who invested in Wall Street. Yes, the standard 10% profit is 10% every day, 10 days is 100%, and Wall Street is rich. 100% in 10 days? What is the interest rate for this Nima? Loan sharks have to yell at this rate when they hear it. Mr. Yang, you won't be deceived, will you? Even if you rob a bank, you can't make money quickly. Tell me, how can you make so much money by investing? Yes, there is nothing in this world that can bring money so quickly, or else the ghost will just sit in the voice and throw money into it directly. Money begets money. When Yang Tianqi heard the words of these ignorant guys, he waved his hands again and said, you don't understand, it's written in English, it's very advanced. Let me tell you, the 50,000 yuan I invested yesterday was taken away. There is a financial war, and it is a war of national fortunes, and those countries have to pay any interest rate, and what I get is after a share. Financial war. You are really deceiving people, don't go to the doctor in a hurry. You don't understand, let me tell you, the exchange rate of various countries fluctuates greatly, this is the national debt. If you release too much, the money is worthless, and then the exchange rate fluctuates, your country's money is worthless, that country can buy your state-owned enterprises, land, and messy things, do you understand? Yang Tianqi asked everyone. Everyone present felt that there was something wrong with his brain. Lu Feng told Yang Tianqi about the financial war, and he was stunned for a while. He also wanted to show it off, but he had long forgotten about it. Let me tell you this, if a country attacks our coins tomorrow, you can't mint more money, or else there will be inflation, and you can only borrow from the world. It's about national security. How high do you think the interest rate is? Yang Tianqi finally found the core of what Lu Feng told him. Mr. Yang, take your money back. I can definitely get it back. Today he put the money in front of me, but I didn't take it. They are a big group, and they do big things. There is a minimum investment limit. I mean this, everyone makes a fortune. Drink and drink, the side hurriedly picked up the wine glass. Everyone raised their glasses to drink. Yang Tianqi's words were interrupted, and he was also depressed. He was kind enough to bring these people to make a fortune, but he was not welcome. If it wasn't for the lack of money in his hand, the ghosts would find them. During this meal, Yang Tianqi was like a demon. He kept telling everyone about the interest rates, Wall Street, and the international situation. These people couldn't stand it. Mr. Yang, like this, you will take us there tomorrow. If you can get your money back tomorrow, we will vote, one of them suggested. Exactly. Don't worry, I'll take you there tomorrow, and you'll take out all your money, and you'll definitely make money. After the banquet was dispersed, these people gathered together to discuss and came to the unanimous conclusion that Yang Tianqi was definitely deceived. Tomorrow, help him get the money back, and it would be over. The next morning, in the cafe, Lu Feng was dressed in a delicate suit and black-rimmed glasses. He took a sip of the coffee in front of him and looked up. 7 or 8 people walked in at the door. Yang Tianke walked in the front. The face was excited to talk to everyone, and the instantly quiet cafe was slightly noisy. Lu Feng stood up with a smile and said, "Mr. Yang is very punctual. This is Mr. Li. He is the marketing director of Kaohsiung Investment, a serious overseas Chinese." Yang Tianke introduced. "Hello." 7 or 8 people looked at Lu Feng like a thief. "What about the money? Get the money out." Lu Feng smiled awkwardly and said, "Everyone sit first, the rebates have already come out." "What are you doing?" Yang Tianke said with some dissatisfaction. "Sit first, they are engaged in finance, so don't be rude." Lu Feng sat down and said, took out a few stacks of money from a bag next to him and put it on the table, then took out the receipt, all kinds of documents that need to be signed, which looked very formal. Yang Tianke signed without saying a word. "Overseas Chinese? Let me hear a few words in English," a boss next to him asked Lu Feng, staring at him. Lu Feng raised his head to look at him. Yang Tianke stared at the man and said, "Sixth brother, what are you doing? You can understand what they said?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Lu, they are all company bosses who do rough work." "You laughed. It's okay, you can take the money. I told you yesterday that the headquarters kept urging me to raise the threshold." "You don't have enough money." Lu Feng put the money in front of him. The people around Yang Tianke picked up the money, glanced at it roughly, determined that it was not less than 50,000 yuan, and said directly, "We will not vote, goodbye." "Sixth brother, what are you doing?" Yang Tianke's face changed, and he was a little annoyed. If it wasn't for sixth brother, he would have fought long ago. "Let's go back, let's go." 2 or 3 people pulled Yang Tianke out. Yang Tianke struggled constantly, and the other tables in the coffee shop looked towards the side, looking very unhappy, disturbing their qingning. After leaving the cafe, Yang Tianke broke free from the 2 people beside him and shouted, "What are you doing? Kindly brought you to make money, but you cut off my money instead. That's a liar. You're a liar. Is the money missing a cent? Where can you find the 10% rebate every day? You don't want to make a fortune, don't stand in my way. If you don't believe sixth brother, we won't vote. It's definitely a liar. If you do this again, I will turn my back on you. I, Yang Tianke, put my words here today. I am kind enough to pull you. If you don't believe me, you can put together some money and get me 100,000 yuan to invest. If you don't let me invest, block my way of making money, don't blame me for turning my face and not recognizing anyone." Everyone present was silent, and the man called sixth brother sighed, very helpless. After all, he had known each other for many years. If he went astray, he would be deceived and ruined. Although 100,000 yuan is a lot, it is worth it if you can buy a lesson, not to mention that people like yourself will pay 40,000 yuan. Ro. Seeing Yang Tianke being pulled away, Lu Feng was actually not panicking, because he knew that the other party would definitely come back. Looking at the location of the door, he secretly counted 3, 2, 1. Yang Tianke pushed open the door and walked in with a happy face. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 324. Yang Tianke walked in front of Lu Feng, smiled awkwardly, and said, "Mr. Lu laughed, my friends have never been in contact with finance, let alone such a powerful finance, there is something to blame, please forgive me. It doesn't matter, I'm doing business, and anyone's business will do it. It's best to cooperate. If you can't cooperate, it's a friend." Lu Feng smiled at the others. "It sounds nice, do you have a work permit?" "No, if you meet Goldman Sachs employees who can show their work permits, you must have met a liar," Lu Feng said calmly. Let's invest this money, go back and get the money, starting from 100,000 yuan, right? Right. A few minutes later the money came, and it was piled up in one piece, very conspicuous. Lu Feng took out the contract, put it in front of Yang Tianqi and said, "It's your name, right?" "Yes, put it in his name, let me take a look at the contract." Sixth brother picked up the contract and glanced at it. "What kind of contract is this? Aren't these clauses a money grab? There's something wrong with your contract, and it's still a big one." Before Lu Feng could speak, Yang Tianqi took the lead and said, "You know what, this is RMB, how can we invest in the United States? This is a transit agency, we need to authorize this company, then transfer to Xiangjiang, and then transfer the exchange rate goes to the US, you don't understand this at all. What if he executes this contract?" Lu Feng sat there and didn't speak, he knew that Yang Tianqi would help him deal with these people. This is a contract. All the money from the past is back. What can we do with this money? Could it be possible that we are still flying to the United States to sign the contract? Besides, if you figure out the exchange rate yourself, it will be very troublesome. The food is cold, they are a big group, they have a relationship, they have cooperation with Citibank in Xiangjiang, and they operate underground, understand? The sixth brother is very helpless. He really doesn't know what kind of ecstasy soup Lu Feng gave Yang Tianqi. He used to be more shrewd, but now he looks like a fool. "Bring the contract, I'll sign it." Yang Tianqi took the contract and signed his name without looking at it. Lu Feng took it over and looked at it, making sure it was all right, put the money in his bag, and said, "See you tomorrow, I'm a regular investment director of Goldman Sachs. If you don't believe me, you can call over there and ask. I'll do it, here's the phone number. Do not worry. I will definitely make a call when I go back, it's just a transoceanic call." Sixth brother said sadly. Lu Feng didn't say much, picked up his things, said goodbye and walked out of the cafe. The sixth brother said to a person next to him, "Follow me." "You guys," Yang Tianqi let out a long sigh, now he was afraid of offending Lu Feng, or else he really couldn't fill the hole. On the way back, Lu Feng could notice that there was a car obviously following him, but he didn't know it. He parked the car at the Sheraton gate and went upstairs directly. There was smoke in Yang Tianqi's office, everyone was there, the door was pushed open, and the man who followed Lu Feng walked in. "What's the situation? Did the grandson run away? He lives at the Sheraton Hotel. I went to the front desk to ask, but they don't disclose guest information. Can't hear anything. It's the security who told me that this man is very rich, and the room he lives in is 3,000 yuan a night. So expensive." Even these bosses were stunned when they heard the price. Yang Tianqi leaned on the sofa with a speechless face, and said, "Our assets combined may not necessarily have many people. I heard that people have tens of billions of assets in the United States. They are here to develop the domestic market, do you understand?" Being able to afford such an expensive hotel, coupled with Lu Feng's temperament and outfit, made several people secretly relieved, at least they weren't so fake and they didn't run away. "Call over there, didn't that kid give a call? Call. If you don't call, you won't give up," Yang Tianqi said and put the phone on the table in front of him. Everyone called the phone number above, and after a few rings, the phone was picked up, and it was the voice of a young woman. "Hello, you've reached the headquarters of Goldman Sachs. What does this say? Who can understand? Hello. Hello Thiophene, Yu Chengdu, do you understand Thiophene? I'm looking for." "Okay." The other side murmured a few words, and the call was transferred. It was a poor Chinese woman. "Hello, this is the headquarters of Goldman Sachs Group. How can I help you?" "Damn it, it's a person talking," sixth brother said to the phone. "I want to check a person, Do you have a person named Li Nianzu? Li Nianzu? Which company is it from? It's yours. This is the headquarters. We have Goldman Sachs Fund, Goldman Sachs Investment, Goldman Sachs Bank, Goldman Sachs Insurance, Goldman Sachs Risk Management. The other party read the names of more than 40 companies in one breath, and they were dumbfounded. Goldman Sachs, right. Okay, I'll transfer the branch for you. A group of people called for an hour and a half, not to mention finding Lu Feng. They didn't even know which company they belonged to, but they owed more than 500 for the phone bill. When Lu Feng called them, he knew in his heart that what they couldn't find, even if there was such a person, they couldn't find it. Goldman Sachs was too huge, and the director of investment direction was replaced very quickly. Only those who get results. That place is a rocket-like rise. Getting rich overnight is not a legend, and breaking a family overnight is not a big deal. The next day, Lu Feng went to the cafe as agreed. This time, when Yang Tianke walked in, he was arrogant and snarled at the people around him. He walked over and said, "Is it a rebate?" Yes. Lu Feng put the various forms in front of him as usual and asked him to sign. After signing, he put the money on the table with interest and said, "Count it, 110,000. Yang Tianke counted it casually, it was indeed 11, and he said to the person beside him with a bright expression, "Can't make a call?" "Mr. Li, yesterday these people called Miguo, but they didn't ask about you, so they called my office. I owe more than 500 phone bills, ha 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 ha." The sixth brother and several others showed embarrassment and pushed him quietly. Now they basically trust Lu Feng. "Hello. Is Mr. Li?" Brother 6 reached out and shook his hand. "Don't take it offense. It's okay, I've talked with a few friends in China these 2 days, and I know that the situation is complicated and I can understand it." Lu Feng looked at Yang Tianke and sighed, "The domestic market is not easy to do, and I was called yesterday. One batch, those devils are really vampires, and they won't give any extra time." "What's wrong?" "The performance is not good. You don't know how fierce the competition on Wall Street is. I already feel that my boss is dissatisfied with me. I don't really want to do it. I have money in my family, just to maintain the relationship with Goldman Sachs. I just joined." Lu Feng's face was full of depression. "Quit. Don't do this." They were just about to make a fortune from Lu Feng. If he quit, it would be over. "How much do you have to invest? You tell me the amount. At the very least, there must be a market." "Yesterday, he called me and told me that in half a month, the funds will be around 100 million yuan. To be honest, 100 million yuan is really not much money. The problem is that it is very laborious to develop the market." Lu Feng took out the money to give. The crowd dispersed and said, "I'm in a hurry, I'll go home and ask my dad for $100 million," and hit him in the face. Go home and ask dad for $100 million? What kind of family is this? The people present went home and asked their father for it, but they could only give 2 heirs. "I also vote, the minimum is 100,000 yuan, right?" sixth brother asked. Lu Feng nodded. "Then I will also vote 100,000. I also voted 100,000. There were 9 people present, and they invested 900,000 yuan. Lu Feng was too tired to sign the contract. He secretly thought that he should raise the threshold as soon as possible to catch the biggest fish. If it goes on like this, 20 million won't be enough. After 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he sent everyone away. Lu Feng threw a cloth bag full of money on the back seat of the car and muttered, 900,000 is still a lot of pressure. That night, on the 4th floor of the Golden Palace, Mr. Hao held a banquet. Yang Tianke and a group of people went there, holding wine glasses. These people were flushed and proud of the spring breeze. "Hello, are you alone? Shall we have a drink?" A soft whisper sounded from behind Yang Tianke. He looked back and saw that it was Sharp, and said, "Is it you?" Jian found out that it was President Yang, rolled his eyes and prepared to leave. "You don't need to do this, isn't it that the commission is gone? I really want to have a drink with you, thank you very much." President Yang picked up the cup and touched her. "Mr. Yang wants to thank me, just lend me 100,000 yuan for a few days. I'm stupid, I have money for you, and let you invest in Mr. Li? You earn less, right? It's just to earn pocket money. With such a big investment, I don't like my little money." Jian sighed, very helpless. Mr. Yang laughed and turned around to chat with the other bosses. Now he has completely become Lu Feng's salesman. He will tell anyone about it when he sees him, and he wants to get more commissions. Few of the people present believed it, but those who have been to the Golden Palace in the past 2 days have heard the Jian three people say that they are no strangers to this overseas Chinese Li Nianzu. The next day, Lu Feng settled everyone according to the rebate. Because there was a lot of money, it was done in the conference room of a hotel. Everyone seemed very excited when they got the money. If 100 million is thrown into it, wouldn't it be 10 million more after sleeping and waking up? It is really not a dream to become the richest man. This time, everyone took out all of their family assets. Some gave 200,000 yuan, some 170,000 to 80,000 yuan, and some more than 300,000 yuan. This amount of money was their limit. Lu Feng told them once again that the threshold would be raised next time, and suggested that they should invest together next time, but he also hoped that they would find a richer boss. Everyone went downstairs and seemed to be very worried. Where did they go to find money? Looking for President Sun. You're stupid, Sun is always the CEO of a state-owned enterprise, look for President Su. Can we see President Su? Others dragons don't see their heads but not their tails. I know there is a dinner party tonight. President Shui will come. He is the vice president of the group. He must be able to talk to President Su. Besides, for such a good thing, let President Shui make money with us, and it will definitely be in business in the future. Take good care of us. Yes, yes, find President Shui. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 325. Yang Tianke called President Shui and explained the situation. When the other party heard such a thing, their first reaction was to meet a liar. The people present explained one after another, saying that they also voted, and they really gave rebates, and the procedures were very formal. So many people say it's true, and Mr. Shui on the other end of the phone is also a little confused. Maybe there is a good thing in this world that falls from the sky? Then call him for tonight's Qigong banquet, and we'll talk about it when we meet. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Yang Tianke was a little excited. If Mr. Su could invest, and with Mr. Su's handwriting, he would definitely be able to make a fortune. Picked up the phone and called Lu Feng. Hello, Mr. Li. On the other end of the phone, Lu Feng answered and asked, what's the matter? There is a dinner party tonight and I want to invite you to attend. Are you free? Hearing the invitation to the dinner, Lu Feng's heart skipped a beat, and he said something secretly, but he still said casually, what kind of dinner? I have a conference call across the ocean tonight. So busy. After returning to China for such a long time, the performance is not satisfactory. I will definitely be criticized. I don't really want to accept it. If it is business, I can turn off the conference call. It must be about business. The vice president of our group headquarters is here tonight, and Mr. Shui's network is very extensive. If Mr. Su's attention is drawn, there is no problem with your business. Mr. Su, don't talk about the province. The whole country is the #1 big man. Lu Feng thought that Su Dashui would come, but he was a little disappointed, but let's do it step by step. In that case, I'll go. Where will it be held? Lu Feng asked. I'll send a car to pick you up. Our banquet is a Qigong banquet. Boss Su and Boss Shui are very interested in Qigong. What I mean by telling you this is not that I didn't mean to entertain you grandly, but that it happened by chance. It's fine, as long as there is business, everything else is easy to talk about, Lu Feng said indifferently. Then I'll wait downstairs in your hotel at 6 o'clock in the evening, okay? Lu Feng responded. Hanging up the phone, I stood up and looked at the sky in the distance. My mood was much better. The days were approaching day by day. A new round of encirclement and suppression of more than a dozen major brands such as Changhong, Skyworth, Konka, Panda, and Onfan was just around the corner. The public opinion for GFN Electronics is even more messed up. This is the prelude to the storm. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the sky was still dark, and the air was filled with a residual temperature after the heat had dissipated. People in twos and threes on the street were walking, and the sound of mahjong in the mahjong hall was still the same. An Audi car was parked downstairs. Yang Tianke was standing in front of the car door smoking a cigarette. From time to time, he raised his head and glanced upstairs. He, the boss of a transportation and trading company, was as uneasy as a driver at this moment. A few minutes later, Lu Feng walked out in a suit and leather shoes. Feeling the temperature in the air, he strode toward Yang Tianke. Mr. Li, get in the car. Yang Tianke hurriedly opened the door with a pleasing smile on his face, and asked, Did you call my money? I've already arrived at Xiangjiang. It is estimated that it will be remitted to the general ledger around 7 in the morning. Don't worry, Lu Feng said and got into the car. Yang Tianke smiled when he heard this, stepped on the accelerator, and the car sped away. Lu Feng lowered the car window of the rear window, and the wind blowing in front of him made people feel a lot more comfortable. He asked Yang Tianke, who was driving in front, Mr. Yang, do you guys believe in Qigong too? In the past 2 years, Qigong has been everywhere. There are powerful experts, but most of them are liars. But what Mr. Shui knows, he definitely has real guys in his hands, Yang Tianke said seriously. Have you seen? No, but I've heard that there are many types of Qigong. There are those that cure diseases and save people, those that strengthen the body, those that exorcise ghosts and ward off evil spirits, and those that fly up. Yang Tianke spit out the introduction. Then why do you believe it? The bosses all believe it. Let's not talk about the matter of mixing circles. I have really seen hard Qigong. When I hit it with one palm, the wall collapses, and the table can be smashed. It's okay to eat raw glass. Lu Feng sat in the back row and thought about it. This method is more like magic. Then the masters tonight will perform like this. No, today is mainly about Qigong exchanges. There will be a lot of sect leaders. President Lu can get to know each other when the time comes. Practice this thing to keep fit, the country is calling for it. National call? When? The state doesn't object, that's a call. Let me tell you, those big men in their 70s and 80s look flushed and full of energy, but they are actually practicing Qigong. Lu Feng didn't want to say more. These people's methods are similar to pyramid schemes, and they rely on everything. The Golden Palace, a 6-story clubhouse, is painted gold on the outside, and all kinds of yellow lights shine on the walls. It is a good place to show the world what color it is, and it is sincere. As soon as the car stopped, 2 young men in security costumes came over, opened the car door and said in unison, "Welcome boss to the Golden Palace, please get out of the car." With a local accent. Lu Feng got out of the car and adjusted his suit. "Boss, did you make an appointment? How many times are you here?" Yang Tianke got out of the car and saw a few security guards in front of Lu Feng. He said dissatisfiedly, "Keep the ball away. This is a big man. He has provoked others, and his head is rotten. The two security guards naturally knew Mr. Yang, glanced at him and walked away. Don't pay attention to him, the security guards here try to ask for tips and introduce you to some vulgar fans. Let's go directly to the 4th floor, Mr. Yang said with a smile on his face. President Lee, please. When I entered, I was followed by 4 or 5 foremen. They were all bras, short skirts, and high heels. That was the case in the hall, not to mention upstairs. Is President Shui here? Yang Tianqi asked. Not yet, but several masters have already come. The banquet has been postponed for half an hour. President Shui has something to do temporarily, said the foreman. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee, let's take a rest first, Yang Tianqi said to the foreman. Arrange the lounge. On the 4th floor, instead of going to the banquet hall, I went to a private room with luxurious decoration, carpets on the floor, soft bags on the walls, and first-class seats on the plane. I'm really sorry, we came early, Mr. Lee, you sit first. Standing in front of him, Lu Feng saw several men in their 50s and 60s sitting in the back row, all wearing white and black kung fu suits, with black cloth shoes on their feet, and their faces full of mystery. A few masters are here too, Yang Tianqi said to them. Don't take offense for the poor reception. Several masters waved their hands slightly, looking extraordinarily free and easy, and replied in a low voice, it's okay. Mr. Lee, sit down. Lu Feng sat down, the chair was still very comfortable. Yang Tianqi didn't sit down, but turned his head and said to a foreman next to him, Foreman Joe, it is estimated that it will take more than half an hour, and I can't just sit here, they are all big people, take care of them, hurry up and take care of people. Call. I'm going to see who has packed up. Foreman Joe turned around and went out. Lu Feng lay there and asked, what's wrong? It's okay, just rest. After a while, some tea and fruit were brought over, and the door was pushed open again. The first thing that caught the eye was a long snow-white leg, which was extremely slender, and then a group of enchanting girls filed in. Standing in a row of 17 or 8, the dim light exuded a tempting fragrance, standing in front of Lu Feng and bowing, hello, boss. This. Lu Feng looked at Yang Tianqi. Mr. Lee, I'm really sorry, it's my problem, there's still half an hour left, don't be too disgusted, feel the taste of your hometown, devote yourself to the embrace of the motherland, and feel the broad mind, Yang Tianqi said sincerely. Lu Feng didn't move, the masters behind him sat up and stared straight at him. I'm married, no need, Lu Feng waved his hands hastily. Yang Tianqi thought that Lu Feng was being polite, and hurriedly let a group of girls step forward. Lu Feng was forced to do nothing. He turned his head and saw that the eyes of several masters were green, and hurriedly said, Master, pick first. I'm a practitioner, so I can't do this. The other party was very hypocritical and polite. Master Gao Feng Liangjia, Lu Feng praised. However, I am amazed by the skeleton of this girl, she is a good Qigong practitioner. The master came over, glanced at the girl in the middle, and nodded slightly, it's interesting, so let me take a look at it for you. If you have the predestined relationship, you can be accepted. The master glanced at the girl next to him again and said, you too. The two girls followed him, and several masters rushed up quickly, and after a few words, they took all the girls to examine the bones. Less than 10 minutes. The masters all came back, with a look of haggard on their faces, standing there and talking a lot of high-sounding nonsense. In order to help them detect clearly, they exhausted the qi in their bodies. After waiting for more than half an hour, people came and went out almost here. Lu Feng was holding a plate and was about to eat a little. He stretched out his hand to take the tweezers for the buffet, but a hand stretched out and took it away. Lu Feng looked to the side and was surprised when he saw someone saying, is it you? The other party also recognized Lu Feng and frowned, why are you here? The person in front of him was none other than the head of the Tianyuan faction who almost fought with Lu Feng in the park. "What do I want to ask you?" Lu Feng reached out and took it from his hand. "I haven't settled the account with you about what happened that day. I thought I was passing by. Now it seems that I am an insider. If this is the case, then I have a relationship with my Tianyuan faction." The other side looked gloomy. "Road. You, don't lie to people, and be careful of retribution in the future, you know." Lu Feng stared at him and shouted, "I tell you, that person's mother has cancer and is already poor, so you still lie." The sect leader was so annoyed by what he said, his face turned purple, he slammed the plate in his hand to the ground, and roared angrily. "Where is the Tianyuan faction?" High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 326. Tianyuan sect disciples are here. There was a sound of swishing from all directions, which seemed particularly imposing. In an instant, everyone in the audience looked around, not knowing what happened. A dozen people rushed towards Lu Feng, staring at Lu Feng and glaring at him. "The old man advises you to report to your family now, or else, don't blame me for performing the exercises, and I didn't give you a chance to speak," the head of the family said very arrogantly. "What happened? Woolen has a dispute again. Who is that person? The Tianyuan faction has been very strong recently, I'm afraid it will be another bloody storm. Which school is this young man from?" I don't know." Lu Feng looked at the person in front of him, then looked around again, and sighed inwardly. "Since you don't report your family, then don't blame me for being rude," the head snorted, his hands made a lucky gesture, and a dozen disciples gathered around. Sect leader Lin is about to start. You know, there are rumors in the rivers and lakes that the head of Lin has a deep inner strength. A few nights ago, he went to challenge the famous Qigong master, the head of Wang. The two fought in the courtyard for 300 rounds, and the next day, the head of Wang was reported thank you behind closed doors. Really? This is too scary, isn't it? Is it that great? The strength is very terrifying. On the land of Sichuan and Sichuan, it is definitely the top 5 people in the ranking. Otherwise, the Tianyuan faction would not have risen so fast. Crap, trash, this kid is absolutely trash. I'm afraid it's going to kill you. Definitely dead. The chattering of the crowd had the style of Huashan discussing the sword. Yang Tianke went out to greet President Shui, and just came back to see the situation here. He hurriedly stepped forward and asked, "What's the matter?" When everyone said it, Yang Tianke was taken aback. If this made Mr. Li a good or bad thing, how would he explain it, and hurriedly walked towards the middle of the crowd. Lu Feng was surrounded by him, and the head of Lin grabbed Lu Feng's shoulder with one hand and said ruthlessly, "Boy, if you provoke me, you can be considered to be courting death yourself. Don't you have Qigong? Come on. I still need Qigong to beat you." Sect leader Lin sneered and said in a low voice, "Hit me." Just as everyone was about to start, they were suddenly pushed aside by Yang Tianke, who got in and shouted, "What are you doing?" "Mr. Yang," sect leader Lin naturally recognized Yang Tianke. "Sect master Lin, what do you think of President Li?" Yang Tianke said anxiously. "I tell you, this is an overseas Chinese who has returned from overseas, and President Shui's VIP. If he has any troubles, be careful that President Shui will trouble you." "Mr. Shui's distinguished guest?" Sect leader Lin was dumbfounded and stared at Lu Feng, looking up and down. So Young is actually a guest of President Shui? Those apprentices who were about to beat people were also at a loss. What should I do now? There are so many masters and sect leaders present, all watching. Sect leader Lin has already said that he will use Qigong to slap Lu Feng to death. Now that he can't fight, what will those people think? The majesty is lost. Moreover, he may not be able to get along in the industry, saying that his Qigong practice is false. How fierce is the competition in this industry now? But if you hit Lu Feng, offending President Shui is equivalent to cutting off his fortune. Sect leader Lin saw that Lu Feng was in a dilemma. Sect leader Lin, do you really want to take action against President Shui's distinguished guests? Yang Tianke said solemnly, with your Qigong strength, you will definitely be killed or injured with one palm. How do you explain to President Shui? Yang Tianke was also very anxious. He really was nothing in front of these masters. It would be fine if they gave Mr. Shui face. The head of Lin was sweating on his forehead in a hurry. Suddenly, he thought of something. He became wise in a hurry and reached out and grabbed Lu Feng's hand. Sect Master Lin, you must never use Qigong. Facing the sudden scene, Yang Tianke was frightened and shouted. The people watching outside stepped back one after another, as if a huge wave of air would blow towards them in the next moment. Many masters had quick luck, and the scene instantly became mysterious. Sect leader Lin grabbed Lu Feng's hand, his expression suddenly changed, his whole body trembled, his expression horrified, and he shouted, "What's in your body?" As soon as these words came out, the apprentices present instantly understood. Sect leader Lin looked terrified, as if he had seen a ghost, his entire face was contorted, as if he felt great pain, and an inhuman scream came from his mouth. This burst out, and the apprentices who surrounded Lu Feng seemed to have been hit hard, and instantly flew backwards. Everyone was lying on the ground, struggling in pain. Only Lu Feng and Yang Tianke were left standing in the middle. It was as if an incomparable aura erupted from Lu Feng's body in an instant, blasting everyone. It's like flying out. The audience was extremely silent, staring at Lu Feng with wide eyes, as if he had seen a ghost. What power is this? Lu Feng had never seen any scene, but he had never seen such a scene. He was a little stunned for a moment, but he reacted in the next second. Looking at the head of Lin lying on the ground, he secretly exclaimed in his heart, he was too smart. You, who are you? Sect leader Lin said with fear, the qi in your body is so terrifying that it makes your soul tremble. Yang Tianke looked at Lu Feng with his mouth wide open. He really didn't expect that Lu Feng actually hid his strength. Lu Feng wanted to tell him that this is the power of money, but in order to look good on everyone's face, he pretended to be deep. When I was born, my dad spent 100 million to find me an expert and inject it into my body. A force. Hiss. The masters present took a deep breath when they heard this. Infused with 100 million power at birth? How to fight this? Mr. Li, are you all right? Yang Tianke hurriedly stepped forward and concerned, wondering, why can't I feel it? He has already used his qi to the transmutation realm, and he can freely retract it, so he will definitely not hurt you. Sect leader Lin helped explain, stood up and made a lucky move, took a deep breath and said, fortunately, I am a Qigong protector. If the internal organs live, if it is replaced by someone else, I am afraid that I will die on the spot. What's the matter? There are so many people lying on the ground. A flat-headed man in his 50s came over, with a burly figure and outstanding temperament, giving him a high-ranking temperament. Yang Tianke turned around and saw the man, and hurriedly said, Mr. Shui, are you here? What's the matter? President Shui glanced at everyone, and set his eyes on Lu Feng. It was the head of the Tianyuan faction who had a little conflict. This is the overseas Chinese President Li, the ancestor of Li Nianzhu. Yang Tianke hurriedly introduced, the head of Lin besieged President Li, but he was shocked by President Li. Zhenfei, President Shui said in surprise. That's right, I'm the one who lost the battle, and I'm willing to be the loser. Sect leader Lin cupped his hands and said, it's a shame, I didn't expect to have such profound Qigong at such a young age, I'm convinced. President Xue looked at Lu Feng with a splendid look, stepped forward and stretched out his hand. Hello, I'm the Vice President of Tianyi Group, Xue's Haiwen. Hello, Lu Feng stepped forward and held his hand. These hands were very thick, and instantly squeezed Lu Feng's palm, which was slightly painful. Lu Feng frowned secretly, and added some strength to his hands. Tonight was originally a Qigong banquet, so I invited President Li to come here temporarily. Please bear with me where the reception was not well done. Let's move over there. President Xue made a gesture of invitation. When they sat down at the table next to them, Yang Tianke's group came up to greet President Xue, politely, and stood by the side. As for these Qigong masters, seeing that Lu Feng was valued so much, they were secretly surprised by his identity. Boss Lu also practices Qigong overseas, President Xue asked. The matter has developed to this point. Lu Feng said that he can't, then he really can't make sense, so he can only nod his head like a duck. I don't know what exercises you are practicing, President Xue asked. Battle Qi mainly absorbs the power of heaven and earth and pours it into the meridians. After the circulation of the sky, it gathers in the Danshan, and it is also divided into grades. The primary stage is the Qi refining stage, and then the foundation needs to be established, followed by the golden elixir. Lu Feng said nonsense. Mr. Xue's eyes lit up, thinking in his heart, foreign countries are high level, not only technology development, but also Qigong is divided into so many levels. What level is Mr. Li now? I rarely practice, mainly because I was instilled with a lot of fighting spirit when I was young. Originally, I was the proud son of the family, and I made great progress all the way, but after the age of 12, my cultivation stagnated and became the laughing stock of the family. To take over the business side of things. Lu Feng felt that he couldn't continue talking about Qigong, otherwise, a fight against the sky wouldn't be able to stop it. That's right, it's a pity that a generation of heaven's pride has perished. How can I go back to China? President Xue is also interested in our Goldman Sachs investment, Lu Feng asked rhetorically. I just heard from Mr. Yang, so I want to meet him. If I had known Mr. Li as such a strange talent, I would have met him long ago. You can introduce your financial products, Mr. Xue asked casually, his mind obviously still the same. In Qigong. Lu Feng brought the bag over, took out a few lists, put them in front of him, and repeated the prepared remarks, and the group of people next to Mr. Yang added a few words from time to time. 10% rebate, Mr. Xue frowned as he looked at these lists. Although he didn't believe it, people like Yang Tianqi had invested a lot, so it shouldn't be a big problem. I can vote some, but I have a condition. Conditions? Lu Feng raised his brows, not knowing what conditions he wanted to say. He said, you can tell me, I will try my best to discuss with the company. It has nothing to do with the company, it has something to do with you. President Xue stared at Lu Feng and said, can you teach me a grudge? High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 327. Lu Feng never dreamed that such a group vice president, President Xue, would make such a ridiculous request. Seeing that Lu Feng was a little hesitant, Mr. Xue said, if it's because of the exercise, I can buy it with money. As long as I practice well, the price doesn't matter. Price is not an issue. The masters present blushed when they heard this. They have practiced for so long, and they haven't used any means, but they haven't waited for President Xue's words. Many people secretly think that when they go back, they should study the thing of vindictiveness. Foreign monks can recite the scriptures. This principle is also useful in the Qigong industry. Lu Feng really underestimated the madness of Qigong in this era. He originally thought that these bosses had a broad vision and their minds would be clearer, but now it seems that they are seriously ill. Qi is an overseas practice, and it has special requirements for meridians. I will go back and sort out the practice in this area. It doesn't matter if it is money or not, it is mainly business, Lu Feng said to him. Mr. Li has just returned to China. He may not know much about the development of Qigong in China. Let's take a look first. Shue's mind was completely on Qigong, and he said to the masters next to him, let's show it to everyone. Ascension Sect, Giant Elephant Cultivation Technique. With a low shout, he started luck, and then he punched indiscriminately with no kung fu skills, punching to the left and punching to the right. It was really funny, like a circus. Lu Feng sat there and took a deep breath, for fear that he would laugh out loud and ruin this weird scene. Don't look at this place intact, my chi has penetrated the wall of the hotel and hit directly outside the atmosphere. The audience burst into applause. Lu Feng also bit his head and clapped his hands. The ruthless door, the 13 hands of ruthlessness. Another one jumped out and followed a group of apprentices to perform. Anyone who touched him twitched and flew away. One even lay on the ground and foamed at the mouth. Master Yan Fang had to scream when he saw it. If Lu Feng guessed correctly, he was foaming at the mouth because he had toothpaste in his mouth. There was another round of applause. The atmosphere has reached the high court, and some people have a background in martial arts, and when they are happy, they are just a toss-up. President Xue looked very happy, and the group of people next to Yang Tianke were even more gleaming. President Xue turned his head, suddenly grabbed Lu Feng's hand, and asked earnestly, can you feel my qi? My recent Qigong experience is also my first glimpse. Lu Feng nodded and said, yes, Mr. Xue's meridians are peculiar, and the energy in his body is extremely strong. With your aptitude, it is only a matter of time before you reach the top of the sky. As soon as these words came out, President Xue became happy and said, all of you take your seats. Tonight was a buffet, and the table was filled with desserts and drinks. Yang Tianke took advantage of the situation and sat beside Lu Feng. Seeing that he still wanted to continue talking about Qigong, Lu Feng hurriedly asked, Mr. Xue is interested in our business. Of course I am interested. As long as the problem is not big, this kind of interest rate is hard to find with a lantern. Mr. Xue looked at Yang Tianke and asked, you voted, right? Yes, yes, and the payment is very stable, you can rest assured, Yang Tianke hurriedly said. If I vote, do we want to see your boss? Mr. Xue said. Mr. Xue is a shrewd person. He knows that his investment is a big deal. In front of Lu Feng, he can do it with money. As long as he takes away his principal, he will earn it. I came back to China to open up the market, and I am in charge of the domestic market. Lu Feng thought for a while and said, I have all the procedures, the bank statement, and the receipt. Please rest assured, Mr. Xue, if you feel uneasy, you can put in 100,000 first. Mr. Xue, there's absolutely no problem with this. Mr. Li's family is playing with big money, and now they are opening up the market, and the threshold will be higher and higher in the future. Yang Tianke patted his chest and assured. Others also joined in. With so many familiar people making package tickets, President Xue felt a little more at ease. Come here, raise a glass, let's drink one, Mr. Xue said as he lifted his glass. Regarding financial matters, Mr. Xue didn't talk deeply. He said a few words to Lu Feng, picked up the wine glass and went to drink at the table of the masters. All kinds of treasures were offered. Some Gunian began to appear in the venue, wearing very grand, basically all kinds of off-the-shoulder evening dresses. Lu Feng sat there thinking secretly, what does this Xue always mean? Mr. Li, a surprised voice sounded. Lu Feng turned his head and felt a burst of aroma, and saw Yuan leaning down and looking at him. Why are you? Seeing her, Lu Feng smiled and said, what a coincidence. Yuan touched Lu Feng with her wine glass and said, Mr. Li, can you continue to vote for me? The company's regulations are really bad. Lu Feng took a sip from his wine glass. Not far away, Jian and Jian saw Lu Feng and hurried over, hoping that Lu Feng would let them vote a few more times. Lu Feng was helpless when surrounded by three women. "It's really a rule," Lu Feng said while looking at the three of them. The three of them looked at each other as if they had made up their minds. Yuan leaned on Lu Feng's ear and whispered, "As long as we can vote, we will be together tonight." She spoke with air, making Lu Feng's ears itchy. Don't, Lu Feng waved his hands hastily. President Li is really popular with beauties, and there are groups of beauties around him. President Shui walked over and said, "Hello, Mr. Shui." Qian said, "Very well behaved. We have known Mr. Li before, and he has known him since he returned to China. He even invited us to stay in a hotel." "Really?" President Shui glanced at the three of them and said to Lu Feng, "Excuse me, President Yang, come over here," and the three beauties come over too. Lu Feng sat down and watched President Shui go towards the living room, thinking to himself that this person is much more vigilant than Yang Tianke. After entering the living room, President Shui sat down and said to everyone, "Sit down." "It's all right, Mr. Shui, we can just stand there, if you have anything to do," Yang Tianke said first. "Where did the three of you meet Mr. Li?" Mr. Shui asked the three of Jian. "On the plane." Jian thought for a moment and said, "No, I saw it when I was in the hotel, in the elevator, and happened to meet on the plane the next day." "Can you be sure that he is an overseas Chinese?" "Yes, he is rich and speaks very good English. When I met him at the hotel that day, he was dressed very well. On the day of the hotel, we participated in a summit forum. When we came back, the general manager of the hotel personally greeted them at the door, saying it was a big man or something. The three of them had gone through too much, and they lost their minds just thinking about it. They put Zhongguan and Li Dai on Lu Feng's head." After listening, Mr. Shui nodded. According to what they said, it should be a chance encounter. He looked at Yang Tianke and asked, "Is it reliable?" "Absolutely reliable. The procedures are very complete, but there is a problem with the contract, because the funds have to be transferred out. We sign a lot of words every time." Yes, sometimes it's annoying to write, so let him help you write it." "People say no, you must sign it yourself." Yang Tianke's group of people already had a dead-end trust in Lu Feng, especially Yang Tianke. Now they want to rely on Lu Feng to fill the hole, and naturally speak for him. After understanding for a long time, Mr. Shui nodded secretly, stood up, and said, "Try it first." "Mr. Shui, this kind of opportunity is rare, or tell President Su, if you invest a few $100 million, it will double in 10 days, Yang Tianke urged. "How many $100 million? President Shui glanced at him coldly and asked, "Can someone in the whole country come up with several $100 million? Yang Tianke's face twitched, and suddenly he felt that because of the 0.5% commission, he had lost his mind. Not to mention several $100 million, there are only a handful of people in the country who can give out $100 million, and most of them are assets. Go out, don't make people wait for a long time." President Shui stood up and said, "If you can get his hands on the exercises, it will be worth it." "Don't worry, I'll do the work," Yang Tianke patted his chest and assured. Lu Feng sat there, and from time to time a master came over to say hello, praising him for being young and promising. Sect leader Lin also came over with a group of apprentices, and apologized to Lu Feng in a low voice, saying that he had eyes and did not know Mount Tai. Who would have thought that a young man in the park would be so rich? Yang Tianke trotted over and said to Lu Feng, "Mr. Li, Boss Shui is fine, but I have a small request." "What request?" Lu Feng asked. "I just hope that you can give him your exercises. He will try it out by investing 100,000 yuan. 100,000, Lu Feng frowned and said, "Didn't I tell you yesterday, the headquarters is in a hurry. Yesterday was the last one for a single 100,000, and now it starts at 500,000, As for the exercises, if you help me do a business, I can give it away. 500,000? Yang Tianke thought for a while, and Lu Feng really said that he felt a little uncomfortable. The threshold was raised too fast, and he still hadn't earned enough. Mr. Li, otherwise, I'll help you and tell President Shui. How many times do you give me more quietly? I really can't get too much money, Yang Tianke pleaded. Lu Feng sighed, nodded, and said, okay, 3 times, go to my own account, okay. Thanks, thanks. A few minutes later, President Shui came over and said to Lu Feng with a glass of wine, then we have a good cooperation. I hope that President Li can return to China and bring new business opportunities to the domestic business community. Lu Feng picked up the wine glass and said, it's mainly up to President Shui, I'll do it. And there's the practice. Lu Feng put down the cup and said, don't worry, I'll write when I go back, but it will take a long time, I'm afraid I won't be able to finish it in a while. It's okay, it's okay. President Shui drank it all in one go, and Lu Feng took out the contract and put it on the table for President Shui to sign. Facing the contract, he also murmured in his heart, but he couldn't resist the persuasion of the people around him. Everyone told him that this kind of contract was just a formality, and it was okay. President Shui picked up the pen and signed his name. Lu Feng stood aside and watched with a smile. From Yang Tianke's group to the Jian 3 girls, it may be the people around you who are pitting you. Only the people around you will give you a sense of security and trust. A big fish has entered the net. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 328. The dinner went on until after 12 o'clock, and there were qigong performances by various masters interspersed in the middle. Lu Feng's eyes were opened this night. As time went by, there were fewer and fewer people present, not only the guests but also many girls were missing. After drinking a lot of wine, Yuan was inseparable with Lu Feng all night, and was still restless. He wanted to communicate with the masters present. Lu Feng found that these masters are not simple. Many people are the guests of some large group bosses, and even heard that several state-owned enterprise bosses worship these people as teachers. After 12 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng put 500,000 yuan in the trunk, and Yang Tianke personally sent it downstairs. Just after returning to the hotel, the front desk told Lu Feng that there were several calls at night, and it was Zhu Lidong who had been waiting for him to call back. Lu Feng responded and went upstairs. He stood in the elevator and pondered. He didn't tell Zhu Lidong, he just had to do it as usual. In such a hurry, it felt like something had happened. Back in the room, let Yang Tianke put the money in the living room, and after sending him away, he picked up the phone and called Zhu Lidong. Although it was almost 1 o'clock in the middle of the night, the phone rang just twice, and the other side picked up. Mr. Lu. It's me, didn't I tell you? Continue to hire a lawyer to argue. Lu Feng sat on the sofa and asked, what's wrong? I've always done it this way. In the past few days, my focus has also been on Shandong and Hebei. I thought it was nothing, but I didn't expect that the industry was turbulent. President Lu, now the whole industry is digging our people, including me. Were called by 7 or 8 companies, Zhu Lidong said helplessly. Lu Feng originally thought that the news of his disappearance would at most make some companies relax their vigilance against Jiafeng Electronics, but he still misestimated his impact on the entire industry. How many people have left? Lu Feng asked with a frown. I called Mr. Zhang, and some people left, but more people were watching, because many people were saying that you are not missing, and now the public opinion is very unfavorable for us, giving people a sense that the building will collapse. I feel. Zhu Lidong sighed and said, everyone is bad-mouthing, and the most important thing is that Su Dashui is also digging me. Dig you? Lu Feng said in surprise, what are you poaching for? What are you going to do? It's still a TV, I eat every day these days. What they meant was that when GFN Electronics collapsed and became insolvent, he would intervene in bankruptcy and reorganization, and let me continue to be in charge. With his relationship with Chang Hong, it was absolutely flourishing. Then what did you say? I was afraid that they would spy on your disappearance at first, so I said to think about it. In the past few days, it feels like a real move. They got our financial data and know that when you leave, they will take 2,000 from the company's account. 10,000. Lu Feng rubbed his head with his hands. It is true that there is no such thing as a traitor. Especially in such important departments as finance, personnel, marketing, and technology, a single message may destroy a business empire. The financial person will check it for me. What are you going to do now? I just want to know, how are you doing? If it goes on like this, there will really be problems. It can't be delayed for too long, and I can respond here. I went very smoothly. At most half a month, you agree first, but you can't spread it in the industry, otherwise it will be more unstable. You can use this to gain their trust and check their background. Lu Feng suddenly, after a pause, after pondering for a few seconds, you can use this to let them open up the market here. I think so too. Now the market in Sichuan is completely in its initial state, so I will agree first. It is good. We talked a lot about the market situation later. Under this kind of turmoil, the sales volume of Vipta has declined sharply, and the launch of new products has not caused much explosion. After hanging up the phone, it was almost 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. Lu Feng leaned on the sofa and stretched out. He was so exhausted that he suddenly sat up in shock. A thought flashed in my mind, will Zhu Lidong actually do a fake show? This thought flashed by, no need to be suspicious, no need to be suspicious. Lu Feng stood up, yawned, and went to wash up. The next morning, I woke up early to sort out a lot of things such as these people's information, receipts, etc. I had to go to the bank to withdraw money, and I had to write exercises for President Shui. Lu Feng felt that he was more tired than being the chairman. In the morning, sitting at the table scratching his ears and scratching his cheeks, he wrote more than 1,000 words. He has also read a lot of fantasy novels. The problem is that the novels are not written. How to practice? After pondering for a long time, I just wrote about the operation of the Zhoutian and the guarding of the Lingtai. In just a few days, the 3 words Li Nianzu have become well known in the industry, and many people are talking about such an overseas Chinese. In the afternoon, several people in Yangtianke made the settlement, and many people called and wanted to invest, but Lu Feng rejected them because the money was not enough for 500,000 yuan. Lu Feng also realized that he needed to raise the threshold to 1 million as soon as possible. The number of 500,000, if a group of people gathered together, they could still make one order. In the next few days, Lu Feng faced various invitations, such as Qigong competitions, Qigong exchange meetings, and the most bizarre thing was that there was one called Symposium on Successors of the Immortal Realm. When Lu Feng first saw the invitation letter, he felt as if he was not in the world for a moment. This is really an absurd era, where anything can happen, giving people the feeling that there are too many liars and not enough fools. After 3 consecutive days of rebates to President Shui, and handing over the first part of the exercise to him, President Shui is now like a brother to Lu Feng. He is the god of wealth. As the threshold was raised to 1 million, even President Shui was a little worried about this threshold. On April 14, at 7 o'clock in the evening, the air was humid and hot during the day. If you didn't take a bath for 3 to 5 hours, your skin would feel sticky. The night was not much better, it was still hot, but the 5th floor of the Golden Palace did not have this trouble. With the arrival of one boss after another, the 5th floor is the VIP room, which is rarely opened. Tonight, the bosses gathered, and the general manager of the Golden Palace had already started preparations 3 days ago. A Chuan brand Rolls-Royce parked at the door. President Shui hurried forward and asked the doorman to go to the side. He opened the door in person and said, "President Su, everything is ready. Mr. Sun is at the back, there are some other bosses tonight." Su Dashui walked down as he spoke, slightly adjusted his suit, and his aura was extraordinarily powerful. "Say goodbye to Mr. Su." Immediately after, two more Hudaben stopped at the door. Sun Yuanqing got out of the car, the back door opened, Zhu Lidong walked down, raised his head and looked at the place, said a few polite words to Sun Yuanqing, and walked in together. "There are not many people tonight, only 15, but if anyone goes out, they are all people who stomp and tremble in the business world, except for Zhu Lidong. Not only the business community, but also a few local municipal secretaries or something." Everyone was polite to each other, and they were all old acquaintances. Zhu Lidong shook hands with people from time to time, exchanged business cards, and introduced himself. As the food began to be served, everyone took their seats. "Let me introduce to you, Mr. Zhu Lidong, a very capable person. He used to be the general manager of Lenovo, now he is the president of GFN Electronics, and he will be my general manager in the future." Su Dashui introduced. "Mr. Su has recruited talents again, congratulations." "That's right, why didn't we have such luck? We all hit you." Zhu Lidong was a little embarrassed to be introduced like this, and said, "It's too early to say, I'm here to meet you today, and sitting here is a friend." While eating, they basically talked about things in the electronics industry. Zhu Lidong talked about GFN Electronics in a mixed manner, scolding Lu Feng from time to time, how he lied to himself and how he exploited himself. The atmosphere at the dinner table was also warm. After 3 rounds of drinking, President Su suddenly turned his head and asked President Shui, "I heard that a powerful person has come to Chengdu recently. A great character? What character?" President Shui was stunned for a moment, then he reacted and hurriedly said, "Indeed, he is an overseas Chinese, and he knows foreign Qigong and fighting Qi. Grudge." Everyone present stared at President Shui, they were really interested in this grudge. President Shui talked about the situation that day, why Lu Feng had a conflict with Tianyuan faction, a dozen disciples formed a siege, and the head of Lin personally took action, but Lu Feng sent them all out. Through his vivid descriptions, the scene at that time was already very mysterious. Mr. Su nodded straight and asked, "I heard that the interest rate he gave is very high." "Yes, he is an overseas Chinese, and his family is very rich. He cooperated with Goldman Sachs Group. He returned to China to explore the domestic market. However, the pressure on the headquarters has been increasing recently. The threshold has already been raised to 1 million, so I can't afford to vote. 10% rebate every day," Sun Yuanqing called out. President Shui nodded heavily, indicating that he heard correctly. This rebate really shocked everyone present, and it wasn't just the rebate, but the principal and the rebate were given together the next day. "This person is interesting." Su Dashui looked at Sun Yuanqing and said, "Would you like to meet him?" "Do you believe it?" Sun Yuanqing asked suspiciously. "There are many strange people and strange things in this world, and the stock market in the United States is indeed very ruthless. If you operate with large capital, the profit is very large. President Sun, you have been there to investigate, don't you understand?" Su Dashui asked. Sun Yuanqing shook his head. What he was looking at was technical, and he didn't know much about the stock market. Zhu Lidong sat on the side and ate quietly, but he was thinking, where is this liar? People with normal brains would not believe the 10% rebate. What's more, what kind of vindictiveness is there when you brag about how rich your family is? He sat there and smiled to himself, thinking of Lu Feng, such a liar. If he met with President Lu, he would be considered a match. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 329. In the more than 10 days in Sichuan, Lu Feng had consumed more than 1 million funds, and the money did not have much effect, all of which were converted into rebates. With the turmoil in the market, Lu Feng called Zhang Fengxia a few times, and already felt that the price war in the terminal market should be in mid-May or early June. Major companies are preparing nervously, and some small companies have begun to shrink their funds to prepare for the winter. 2 days later, Lu Feng received an invitation letter. It was a Chinese and foreign Qigong academic exchange meeting. President Xue took the lead, and President Su would arrive at that time. Seeing this invitation letter, Lu Feng breathed a sigh of relief, and finally flickered to Su Dashue. He just didn't expect that the two sides would use the name of Qigong. Before I went, I also asked Mr. Xue, who will be there at that time. He is afraid of being recognized. There are only so many people at the top of the business world. Mr. Xue mentioned several names, but Lu Feng didn't know them either. In Sichuan, Sun Yuanqing was probably the only one who knew him. After agreeing, he sent President Xue out the door. Lu Feng looked at the pile of invitations on the table, grabbed it with his hands, and threw it into the trash can. During this time, he became famous in the local Qigong circle. Some people saw that he was getting close to the big bosses like President Xue and President Su, and wanted him to join the Qigong Association and serve as the vice president, but Lu Feng refused. After 7 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng packed up, and in order to prevent accidents, he also took a hat, so as not to meet acquaintances who were not covering up. On the 5th floor of the Golden Palace, the decorations were exceptionally brilliant today. All the lights in the halls were turned on, and those Ying Ying Yanyan disappeared. The ground was covered with a red carpet. At each door stood 4 etiquette girls in Cheongsam. Absolutely grand enough. Lu Feng got out of the car and wondered how he could take out the money from Chang Hong's hand. When he looked up, he saw Zhu Lidong. Both of them just got out of the car, their eyes met, and the air froze for a moment. That. Zhu Lidong couldn't understand why Mr. Lu appeared here. Didn't he start from the side and play some kind of Ponzi scheme? He wanted to say hello, but he didn't dare to act rashly, so he could only stare. Lu Feng was stunned for a few seconds. He reacted and said, "Sir, please go first." Zhu Lidong also reacted, smiled, and said, "Thank you." Accompanied by the beautiful hostess at the door, they were greeted by waves, and the two of them walked towards the elevator, with a layer of cold sweat on their backs. When he got on the elevator, Lu Feng found a camera inside, coughed and gave him a quiet wink. Zhu Lidong understood in his heart that he would not ask any more questions, but both of them were curious as to how the other would appear at the banquet tonight. On the 5th floor, today's scene is relatively big. People like President Xue can only stand at the door to welcome guests. Seeing Lu Feng and Zhu Lidong walking over together, President Xue hurriedly stepped forward and said, "President Li is here, really it's Peng Dishengui, you must have a good chat with President Su tonight." "That's for sure. My business has been good recently, and the headquarters has given me an award. As long as I make a big order, I may be promoted to the vice president of the Asian region," Lu Feng said with a smile. "Then I congratulate Mr. Li in advance, let's make a fortune together." "That's natural," Lu Feng smiled and patted his shoulder. Zhu Lidong stood aside and looked at the two people who were very familiar with each other, and said, "This gentleman, please introduce me, I don't seem to know each other very well." "This is a returned overseas Chinese, the ancestor of Li Nianzhu, who is the marketing director of Wall Street Goldman Sachs Group, and is Mr. Li, who has been very popular in the industry recently, and is also a master of Qigong," Mr. Xue introduced. "This is the president of Jiafeng Electronics, Mr. Zhu Lidong." Zhu Lidong looked at Lu Feng. He had been listening to the three words Li Nianzu a lot recently, especially those related to Qigong, and his ears had grown calluses. But he dared not even dream that this person was faked by Lu Feng. He stretched out his hand to hold Lu Feng's hand and said, "Long time for a long time. President Zhu is very talented at first glance." "Is this Jiafeng Electronics owned by President Zhu?" Lu Feng asked. "How is that possible? How can there be such a rubbish company under President Zhu?" Zhu Lidong asked President Shui. "Right. Exactly. Besides, Jiafeng, this name is really boring." Zhu Lidong laughed with a bit of wickedness as he spoke. Lu Feng also laughed, stretched out his hand and patted Zhu Lidong's shoulder and said, "It seems that Mr. Zhu is very dissatisfied with the current company. You can follow Mr. Zhu." The company was about to close down, and the bosses ran away. Mr. Shui said from the side, "Let's go in and talk, Mr. Zhu will be there in a while." After a few polite words with him, Lu Feng stepped into it, followed by Zhu Lidong. His eyes glanced at Lu Feng's face from time to time. He could sense that he was full of doubts now. "It's a pity that it's not the place to talk now." Lu Feng has just entered a few steps when the head of Lin hurried forward, clasped his fists with both hands and said, "Congratulations to Mr. Li, the king of martial arts." "The king of martial arts?" Lu Feng's face wrinkled. These people really did anything to put a high hat on him. As soon as sect leader Lin finished speaking, all the dozens of disciples in the audience knelt on the ground and shouted for the king of the martial arts. Lu Feng is going to meet with President Zhu tonight. Based on the inquiries made by the gang of sect leader Lin about Lu Feng's origin, he will definitely have a very close relationship with President Zhu. If you don't flatter yourself now, when will you wait? I'm not interested in the king of martial arts. You guys hurry up. Lu Feng looked at sect leader Lin and said, "This is a little thought from our Qigong Association. After your guidance in the past few days, our skills have greatly increased. I hope you don't shirk." Head Lin raised his head and looked at Lu Feng. Many people at the scene looked this way. The battle was a bit big. Lu Feng didn't want to cause too much trouble, so he nodded his head and said, "Then I'll make it harder and get up." "President Li still knows Qigong?" Zhu Lidong asked. "I know a little, but Mr. Zhu also understands," Lu Feng asked casually. "I don't understand this, I'm just a marketer." The two chatted for a while, and they separated very tacitly. There were already many people at the scene. Lu Feng ate some fruit and watched casually. A few minutes later, a man in his 50s walked in, followed by President Shui. The man was dressed in a suit and wore a 3 to 7 point shot. He looked a bit refined, and there were 4 or 5 men behind him. Very powerful. As he walked in, the eyes of the audience slowly gathered towards him. "Hello Mr. Zhu. Hello Mr. Zhu." The voices of greetings came one after another, and these masters who were arrogant in front of others were extremely humble at the moment. Is Su Dashui nodding? Mr. Shui hurriedly walked in the front and said, "Let me introduce to you, this is Mr. Li from Goldman Sachs Investment." President Zhu glanced at Lu Feng up and down, and was a little surprised that he was so young. He stretched out his hand and said, "Welcome Mr. Li back to China." "Hello, Mr. Zhu," Lu Feng shook hands. "Come over there and take a seat, let's all sit down and talk." After everyone was seated, Mr. Zhu was quite straightforward and said straight to the point, "How much is your investment amount? Is the 10% rebate?" "Yes, and the bigger the capital, the better. Especially this year, the international capital gap is very large," Lu Feng said seriously. "With such a good rebate, Mr. Li still can't find an investor?" Mr. Zhu asked rhetorically. "Actually, it wasn't that high last year. This year's international situation is different. I believe Mr. Zhu should pay attention to international affairs. The confrontation between finance is very fierce. Wall Street is the financial heart of the United States. It is related to the survival of the country, and the interest rate is very high. Of The people present nodded secretly. They really believed Lu Feng's excuse, because the international situation this year was really complicated. If their money flowed directly into Goldman Sachs and then went on to do something else, they might indeed get such a high rebate. I've also inquired a lot. It's not a day or two for Mr. Lee, so I won't talk about other nonsense. Mr. Su pondered for a while and said, I'll put in 10 million to see first. 10 million? Mr. Shui was secretly having fun. As the introducer, he would get a commission of 50,000 yuan. Mr. Su is refreshing. Lu Feng picked up his glass and took a sip. After Mr. Su finished speaking, he looked at Zhu Lidong and said, Don't Mr. Zhu vote. Zhu Lidong shook his head and said, I really don't have any money in my hands. The salary has not been paid this month. I really don't know what's the point of you continuing to work. Mr. Su looked at Lu Feng and asked, I heard that the CEO of GFN Electronics is also very young. Yes, that grandson is about the same age as Mr. Li. I've also misunderstood. It's not safe to do things without a word. Zhu Lidong sighed and said, This is also a lesson. Lu Feng sat there and listened to Zhu Lidong scolding him. The most embarrassing thing was that he had to pretend that he had nothing to do with him. Does Mr. Li know anything about the electronics industry? My family has invested in several industries in this area, and I don't know much about it, but I heard that domestic electronics companies have started this year. Lu Feng looked at the crowd and said, There are indeed a few good ones. One of them is called GFN Electronics. The CEO of this company is about the same age as you, but he has done a very strong job. Oh? Is that so? Lu Feng looked at Zhu Lidong in surprise and said, I can meet you if I get a chance. That bastard has already run away. You can't see it in China. Zhu Lidong scolded angrily. Mr. Zhu, don't be emotional, things will pass. Mr. Su looked at him with a look of resentment, and the smile on his face was very happy. Run away, Lu Feng said with a look of surprise, then this bastard deserves to be scolded. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 330. Zhu Lidong's resentment is understandable. The people present did not expect Lu Feng to curse so hard. Everyone looked at him, and even Zhu Lidong stared at him in disbelief. Originally, he was worried that he would scold him in front of him, but Lu Feng would settle accounts in the autumn, but he did not expect him to scold him even more harshly. Mr. Li had a holiday with Lu Feng, Mr. Su asked in confusion. No, I don't know each other, but the most important thing in finance is integrity. You can't make false promises to customers and then run away. What I hate the most is this kind of garbage, Lu Feng said with a look of resentment on his face. Said, I can tell from your words that this person is definitely not a good person. Mr. Li is really a discerning person. Su Dashui touched his glass and said, It is this person who has disturbed the domestic electronics industry and caused the entire industry to go back 10 years. 10 years back, Lu Feng said with a surprised expression, this kind of person should be pulled out and shot. That's right, but his good days are coming to an end. President Su drank it and said, this kind of stuff is not worthy of being mentioned by President Li. This person has no culture and relies on opportunism. Yes, yes, you lied to me to join the fire pit of GFN Electronics. Zhu Lidong said hurriedly. The scene seemed to be a meeting of Lu Feng's criticism. Although President Su did not know Lu Feng, and the conflict of interest was not direct, it did not affect his cursing against Lu Feng. Su Dashui is inextricably linked with Hokan Copper. The business world is a circle, and there are only those people who come and go. If Lu Feng wants to engage in Hokan Copper, he will do him. What's more, it has a direct competitive relationship with Changhong, which he holds shares in. After 12 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng left with a check for 10 million yuan. The first thing he did when he returned to the hotel was to call Zhu Lidong. Mr. Lu, don't take things to heart at night. I'm just talking nonsense. In that case, If you don't say that, it won't work at all. Zhu Lidong hurriedly said this as the first sentence he answered the phone. It's okay, I didn't take it to heart. Have you seen Sun Yuanqing this time? Lu Feng asked. I have dinner every day these days. I see you almost every day. Sun Yuanqing also asked me about the market. I can't see Sun Yuanqing now. If he sees me, his identity will be revealed immediately, and everything will be in vain. You have a good relationship with them now, help me keep an eye on it, and you can send my old pager. It is good. So what's going on with your current rebate? Lu Feng wanted to tell him, but his instinctive vigilance didn't say anything. He just said that this layer of fog will be revealed after a while, just wait a bit. It was already late at night, and the lights in a villa were bright. Su Dashui, Sun Yuanqing, and President Shui were sitting on the sofa. On the coffee table was a contract and some other materials. Sun Yuanqing picked up the contract and glanced at it, slammed it for a long time and said, "There is a big problem with this contract." There is indeed a problem. Once it is carried out according to the original intention of the contract, the money will be locked up immediately, but it will not be lost, and the contract is quite formal. Su Dashui took a puff of smoke. This person's identity is very fascinating. But I don't think it should be. I doubted it before, but the rebates are very timely and all the procedures are complete. Mr. Shui sat aside and said, "Not only do we do business, as far as I know, he is also eager to contact other bosses, and he is very active in the local business community during this time. If you're really looking for funds, why did you go to Sichuan?" Sun Yuanqing frowned and asked, "There's something tricky here. He should go to a coastal city, where the funds are more abundant." I hadn't thought about that. Have these English translations been made? Sun Yuanqing asked. After the translation, we found a formal translation agency. The translation is here, just like what Li Nianzu said, and the people in the translation agency said that these English words are very particular, and those who can write this kind of copy in China are few and far between. Countable President Shui took out a stack of translations from the bag beside him. Everyone looked at it, and there was no problem. Can this transit company be found? The place of registration is Shenzhen, and I already sent someone there the day before yesterday. President Shui said. The registration time was in November last year, and the registrant was Yuan Li, who should have bought the ID card, and it was a subsidiary holding company, upstream. The company shows that it is from the Xiangjiang side, and there is no way to check there. Bag company. Yes, it's just registration. There is only one company account. We asked the bank to ask about it. There are only a few hundred yuan in the account, and there is no office location and no specific person in charge. President Shui recounted all the information he had found. In this era of no internet connection, it is possible to find so much information, and I am afraid that only people with strong connections and backing from two big companies can do it. Do you think he will run away? Sun Yuanqing looked at Marshal Su and asked. Su Dashui pondered for a long time before saying with certainty, "I'm also betting, and I'm giving a check. With my relationship with the bank, as long as I'm in the country, it can be frozen urgently. Call Mr. Li to discuss. If it is true, I want to use this to roll over the company's funds. With the current funds, it is not enough to completely kill GFN Electronics," Sun Yuanqing said seriously. Isn't GFN Electronics on the verge of collapse? I read many newspapers saying that it will be completely finished by the end of this year, President Shui said in surprise. He watched the news in the past 2 days, and felt that GFN Electronics had become yellow. Why is Mr. Sun still like Mr. Zheng? You take the news as the standard? Those people can't wait that tomorrow is the end. Don't underestimate GFN Electronics. Ordinary companies have long since dispersed. Su Dashui nodded in agreement. From this point of view, we can see Zhang Fengxia's ability. In normal times, just because Lu Feng is there, She can't show her. This kind of boss disappears. There are problems with funds, and there are problems in the market. It can be said that she is in a desperate situation. Still able to stabilize the business. Just by this hand, it is already worth about 1 million yuan in annual salary. Moreover, the olive branch that Zhang Fengxia received recently has been given an annual salary of up to 1.5 million, which is already at the top of the ranks of professional managers in China. And that Zhu Lidong is also a ghost. Recently, he is still commanding and controlling the markets in Hebei and Shandong, so I have always suspected that there is fraud. Sun Yuanqing's side, a businessman, without thinking about doing business, starts playing the art of war. Su Dashui was smoking a suffocating cigarette. In his heart, he really liked this Lu Feng who had never met. If such a person could use it for him, he would definitely be a good player. Unfortunately, such a person is destined to have an unruly heart that no one can tame. Sun Yuanqing picked up the phone and called President Li, and only answered after 2 calls. Mr. Su, what's the matter? The voice on the other end of the phone was a little dull, apparently disturbing a good dream. Mr. Li, it's me, Sun Yuanqing, disturbing your rest. No, I just lay down. What's wrong? The Li Nianzhu I talked about a few days ago, today President Su invested 10 million to try it out. Now we have found the news, this person should be fine, but the rebate is too much. How about your side? Sun Yuanqing asked. Huang Yawei can't stand it anymore. Today, people from the tax bureau came to investigate. Recently, GFN Electronics acquired Tianying Copper, and some small enterprises began to feel restless. If GFN Electronics cannot be suppressed in the short term, it will have a very serious impact on the industry. Big. Mr. Li is a little worried. Recently, the copper industry has been a little restless. Due to the chaos in the electronic market, some companies are no longer willing to accept their overlord terms. Has the sales dropped? Mr. Su asked. It's about 20% this month. As long as GFN Electronics is suppressed, Huang Yawei will not dare to touch me, but will move his whole body. Mr. Li sighed and said, strangle as soon as possible so that Lu Feng can catch his breath. Come on, even if he doesn't want to attack the copper industry, Huang Yawei will force him to enter the industry. Isn't Lu Feng missing? Mr. Shui wondered. This man is cunning and cunning. I've been thinking about it for the past few days. He might be hiding somewhere. I have this idea now, the next wave of terminal market competition, the company's money is not enough to completely win. If this Li Nianzhu is reliable, in the short term, double the capital, and start again, you can give me a walk the bridge. Yes, I can move 20 million here. Thank you, Mr. Li, you should rest early. After Mr. Li sighed, he exhorted, Mr. Sun, if the copper industry falls and returns to the free market price, your competitiveness will be reduced, and companies like GFN Electronics will grow in large numbers. This year's electronics companies have been in large numbers. You should also feel the pressure in the market. Mr. Li, I understand, Sun Yuanqing said solemnly. As long as you know. Mr. Li hung up the phone. Su Dashui twisted out the cigarette butt and snorted, he's out of options now, it's all about forcing you. Huang Yawei wants to get him, and he panics too. Everyone is a grasshopper on a rope. Sun Yuanqing stood up and said, I'll go back first. President Shui stood up and said, I'll see you off. Su Dashui sat there and thought to himself. In fact, he already wanted to sell the equity of Hokan Copper Industry. In the past 2 years, he has become more and more aware that marketization is unstoppable. Monopolies in various fields are being broken, and companies are companies after all, and it is impossible to fight against the state. He also knew that by withdrawing capital from Hokan Copper now, he was pulling a ladder, and he was already deeply tied to these people. The next day, Lu Feng went to the bank to cash the check and transferred the money to an account in Shenzhen. This company was registered as a research and development company last year. During this period of time, more and more people came to him, and the funds invested every day had reached more than 20 million. He naturally knew that this 10 million was just a small amount of money, just a test. With the return of the funds, Lu Feng lost 2 million in one day. Su Dashui was very cautious. Seeing that Jian Ran came back safe and sound, he did not invest too much. He smashed 11 million in again. In 4 or 5 days, Lu Feng had already taken away more than 5 million. This money is no longer like running water, but like a dike bursting. How could Lu Feng not feel distressed, but he had to endure it, and he couldn't bear the child to be trapped by the wolf. The 5th time the funds arrived, Su Dashui couldn't help it. This kind of stable rebate made him greedy. He called Lu Feng and invited him to the Golden Palace for a detailed discussion, and told him to introduce him to a big man. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list.